This is the new Range Rover Velar. No, wait. This is the new Range Rover Evoque, or what we'd like to call the baby Velar. It replaces the previous model first revealed 10 years ago, which became not just a PR success with Victoria Beckham's involvement, but also a huge commercial success. Since it was launched, Land Rover has sold over 100,000 units worldwide each year for a few years in a row. At that time, 1 out of 3 Land Rovers sold globally was an Evoque. Those are really big shoes to fill, so we're going to borrow one to find out. So today we're at the new Sime Darby Auto City, which is home to brands like Volvo, Porsche, Ford, Hyundai, BMW by Auto Bavaria, and of course, Jaguar Land Rover, to borrow one and find out what it's like. Let's go. So on one side you have Jaguar, on the other side you have all these Land Rover vehicles. Now let's go to the handover room to go collect our Evoque. Now I'm going to be honest with you, I've never actually been in the previous generation Evoque, but just based on the pictures, this seems like a big step up. In fact, because of the steering wheel, the instrument cluster, the center console, the display, it makes you feel like you're in a Velar. But this new Evoque has something that even the Velar doesn't have. It's called the clear side rear view mirror and the clear side ground view. The clear side rear view mirror is essentially a camera on the shark fin antenna that works with the rear view mirror to project what's at the back. There's also the clear side ground view, which uses the forward-facing cameras on each door and on the front grille to create a virtual 180-degree view of the road ahead. And it's really cool, clear, unobstructed, and more importantly, a wider view of the back, which is especially helpful when you consider that rear visibility isn't all that great as a result of the car's design. So I guess you win some, you lose some. You know what? I'm just gonna leave this on and drive with it. I'll never get bored of looking at the door handles retract from the side mirror. It's such a cool gimmick. The car we're driving is the P250 R-Dynamic model with 249 horsepower and 365 Nm of torque from a 2-litre turbocharged Ingenium engine paired to a 9-speed automatic gearbox. 0 to 100 is done in 7.5 seconds with a top speed of 230 km an hour. As for the P200 non-R-Dynamic model, that one makes 200 horsepower and 320 Nm, about 8.5 seconds from 0 to 100. Pretty solid numbers, and in the real world it's quite effective as well. It'd be silly to think that there's not enough performance even though the car is quite heavy at about 1,800 kilograms. There's plenty of performance in this, and it's smooth too. Actually, graceful. Graceful is how I should describe it. It just whooshes. The one slightly annoying thing though is this gearbox. It's not as intuitive as I hope it would be. So for example, if I were to overtake a car, press a little harder on the throttle, the car drops a gear, I overtake. But after that, it doesn't shift up fast enough. It holds the gear for a little longer than I would like. So after overtaking, you get this sort of engine braking. It's not very pleasant. And then there's these pedal shifters. When you want to overtake a car, just downshift, accelerate. And in most modern cars with pedal shifters, it will just automatically switch back to automatic in a few seconds. But in this, it will just hold the gear. It's not a car to be driven in a hurry. You get the sense that the car doesn't like it and wants you to take it easy, because 90% of the time when you're not driving in a hurry, it's all good. I think people who buy Range Rovers, especially the Evoque, do not really care how quickly their crossovers go from 0 to 100 and all that performance stuff. I strongly believe those who buy the Range Rover Evoque obviously needs the car to be good, but more importantly, it has to be stylish, rather than just, oh, it was a nice car to drive. In a way, you can say they want it to have more style than substance, but not in that way. I'm sure you know what I mean. It's just a different vibe being in here compared to its closest rival, the Porsche Macan. There's something about being in a Range Rover that makes me feel safe and superior. I feel so cocooned in here, yet not claustrophobic. It feels like it's made of Iron Man's suit. When you really observe, it's obvious how much there is between you and the outside, less pleasant world. Everything feels very robust, from the door panels to the thick A-pillars, which doesn't exactly affect visibility because of how it's designed. Even the key fob feels robust, very nice and weighty. Speaking of safety, strangely, being the smaller car in the Range Rover range, it's actually safer than the Velar in the Euro NCAP test. Just look at the test results. Forward visibility has been great. Granted, I'm seated a little higher than usual, yet there's still plenty of headroom. As for rear visibility, not so, but don't worry, I'll get to that later. I must say, it feels really stable out here, and I was going quite fast earlier and I could feel the car holding onto the road quite well. Body roll was very minimal and the ride was comfortable. I wouldn't say it's as comfortable as the Velar, but this one's not far off. It's like taking out the inner sole of your gym shoes. You just feel the road a bit more, but I think it's perfectly fine. Going through the turns, steering feels quite direct, but a little numb after. You don't get much feedback. Does it matter? Nah, not really. For what the Evoque is supposed to achieve, I think it scores an A+. Again, it's not about driving like a sports car, this thing. It's all about being effortless, and whether you're driving around a car park or cruising on the highway, it makes it easy and gentle for you. I can really see myself doing hundreds and hundreds of kilometers in this. It's got loads of driver assistance for the highway as well. You get adaptive cruise control, high-speed emergency braking up to 160 km an hour, and lane keep assist. For the city, you have the 360-degree surround view camera, park assist, and sensors all around the car to warn you of all the obstacles. Now, for some of you who might ask, is it really that special? 480,000 ringgit special? Why can't I just get a Mercedes GLA or BMW X1 or a Volvo XC40? Wouldn't I enjoy the same amount of premiumness for half the price? The answer is a solid no, in bold and all caps. On one hand, it's like someone buying a Rolex for the first time. On the other hand, it's like someone who is done with Rolexes and is now collecting vintage Pateks. Sitting in here right now, it's like being in an expensive boutique in Star Hill or Pavilion, calmly going through the different colours of ties or handbags, sipping on expensive coffee with someone in a suit quietly following behind you, wearing white gloves and all. To say that the X1 or the XC40 at half price is more worth it than buying something like that for $500,000 is like saying, why get a tie from Prada when I can get the same thing for much lesser at, say, a Uniqlo sale? I'm pretty sure people who buy Range Rovers do not think like that. So right away, I can tell you there's plenty enough power, even if you have to carry a full load. The car is behaving quite well, quite sharp and surprisingly fun to drive. I've also turned the terrain response to automatic, allowing the car to adapt to different driving conditions, giving you optimum traction on and off the road, which is especially useful in these conditions. Although if there was one letdown from this experience, it would be the tyres. It just feels like the car can do a whole lot more than what the tyres can offer. All-weather tyres, what to do? The first thing I noticed about the Evoque's interior compared to the Velar is this gear lever. With the Velar, you get this sort of pop-up rotary dial to control the drive settings. Nothing wrong with that, I thought it was quite unique, but I suppose some people just don't like change. I also said in my Velar review that the backrests for the front seats were just a bit too hard. In this Evoque though, there's no such thing. In fact, the seats even come with lumbar support. Now, I just want to get it out of the way. You must be wondering, why is he talking about the Velar? Why is he comparing about the Velar? Well, I mean, it does look like a baby Velar on the outside and the interior architecture does look like the Velar, but I'm pretty sure you guys would want to know what are the little differences here and there. Also, the other difference is instead of a sort of flip-up cover to access the cup holders, you now get a tray with a rubberized surface to put your phone. I think it's quite convenient, but to access the cup holders, you sort of lift it up and then where does this go? It's quite inconvenient, isn't it? There's a massive armrest storage as well. Not much everywhere else, except under the center console storage. Now, if you remember my previous experience with this infotainment system, I said it wasn't very responsive, it was a bit laggy. But good news, in this, it's actually noticeably better. According to Range Rover, there are software updates going on all the time, so the effects do speak for itself. That being said, I truly believe Range Rover owners with their high-tech, super responsive gadgets, laptops, smartphones would probably still find this a little insufficient, so there's still a long way to go. In this Evoque, you also get Android Auto now as opposed to just Apple CarPlay in the Velar. And remember what I said about not having to worry about parking due to the slightly restricted rear view? Check this out, there's so many different camera angles to choose from. I don't think there's 1 inch of the car that you can't see out of. It's insane. I mean, if that doesn't work for you, there's still a parking assistant. So what I've noticed about this clear side rear view mirror, having left it on the entire drive up, is that it's a little too zoomed in. If a car pulls up behind you and stops, it actually looks like it's going to rear end you. It's quite unsettling. In fact, it's so zoomed in, I can even see what the driver behind is doing in his or her car. In the dark though, the clarity is just superb. What I really like about this entire setup though, aside from the fact that you don't get to see it in any other cars, is that it's very customizable. I can pretty much have multiple displays going on at the same time. So at the top screen here, I chose to have Apple CarPlay going on for navigation. At the bottom here, multimedia displays. And with these two knobs, I can control the drive settings, the temperature, the fan speed. Same goes to the steering. I can access the multi-information display with the buttons here, also controlling the multimedia controls. Up front here on the digital instrument cluster, there's a whole lot more going on as well. You can pretty much customize and configure it to however you want, whether it's having 2 meters or the entire map on the display. As for me though, I chose to have the RPM meter in the center, just like a Porsche, and the trip summary on the right, and then just a picture of the Evoque on the left, just to remind me of what a cool looking car I'm in. Frankly, there's so many screens up here that it just kind of takes a little getting used to, just like all the other modern cars these days. It kind of reminds me of being on a trading floor at a bank. Yeah, I used to work at a bank before. This is just the perfect environment to adapt to for those who are used to working with multiple displays. Now, let's go talk a bit about the Evoque's exterior. Oh yeah, before I forget, you see this little symbol here? This is actually a blind spot monitor for the passengers. You see this on the front and back doors. Basically what it does is, every time you're about to open the door and the car detects that there's an approaching car, motorcycle, or actually any obstacle at all, there's another symbol with an exclamation mark that will illuminate in orange. What's even smarter, I think, is that it's positioned here, right in the line of sight of the passenger every time it opens its doors. How cool is that? So, there's a reason why we call it the baby Velar. Just look at that front end. Doesn't it look like the Velar we reviewed recently? Everything from the LED headlamp design to the completely flush front end. But actually, not quite. These headlamps are even slimmer compared to the Velar, possibly the slimmest Land Rover has ever made. And because this is the R Dynamic model, you get a whole lot more black trims, and more uniquely, these copper trims on the front bumper, on the front bonnet, the fenders, and the doors. And because this is the R Dynamic model, you also get these 20-inch wheels. Personally, I think they could have been a lot cooler, look a lot edgier, look a lot more prominent if it had a dual tone design. With this, it just looks a little bland, not really fitting of the image of this car. Now, the only difference between the baby Velar and the Velar is this character line here. In the Velar, it starts from this trim and runs all the way to the back, joining with the tail lamps, whereas this one overlaps with it. The other difference is the rear overhang. In the Velar, you get a lot more rear overhang, whereas with this Evoque, it looks like it kind of reversed into a wall. Personally, I don't find this very attractive, but I think overall, it's a look that's hard to dislike. What I find the most attractive though about this side profile is this dramatically sloping roofline, although it doesn't actually have a negative effect on the rear seats. Because there's quite a fair bit of space in here. I'm not saying it's as spacious as the Velar, but considering how it looks on the outside, you wouldn't think that there's this much space on the inside. I have plenty of knee room, leg room, and especially headroom because of this curved headlining. The seats are very comfortable. I like the angle of recline. I also like the fact that it sort of has this curvature that supports you and holds you in place. Although, safe to say, it'll be a lot more comfortable if it was just 2 adults back here. If it was 3, there might be a little too much physical contact for comfort. You get rear aircon vents, and the cup holders by the door here is a lot more accessible compared to the front. Although I wish instead of the 12-volt socket, they'd give me rear USB ports instead. Perhaps even rear aircon controls. All in all, I think it's a really modern, futuristic, practical interior. But if I had one criticism, I'd say that it's a little too somber. It looks a little too plain and dark because of the black trims and the black leather upholstery, the black headlining, just black everywhere. So, as for the final and mandatory question, is this baby Velar, the all-new Range Rover Evoque, the car for you? For that, we have to go back to our previous conversation. Are you the kind that looks at a warehouse sale and says, yes, I want to be part of that, I want to go in and grab a good deal? Then perhaps not. But if you're the kind that looks at the warehouse sale and says, it's just too crowded, I don't want to go in and fight with people, I'd rather go and shop at a high-end boutique in Pavilion, then most definitely yes. For more information on the new Range Rover Evoque, do log on to AutoBuzz.my. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, share it, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit the bell icon for the latest notifications on our newest videos.